Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Estrada, Community Representative for Mayor Gloria. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy, el Distrito 8, para una oportunidad de conocer a su alcalde y aquí con la regidora Councilmember Vivian Moreno. Muchas gracias. Vamos a empezar. También tenemos servicios en español, so si quiera hay una interpretación aquí, nomás funciona pon en español que quieres español y si quieres oír el audio original, nomás pones mute or unmute. So vamos a empezar. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're excited to get started here today. My name is Stephanie Estrada, and then I'll have the pleasure to turning it over to Councilmember Vivian Moreno.
Wonderful. Good evening. Is everybody awake? Is everybody dancing? Thank you, Ms. Estrada, for the introduction, and thank you, Mayor Gloria, for hosting this town hall in District 8. But I especially want to thank the members of the public for joining us tonight. It's very important to have people I represent hear from the mayor and hear from me and how we can be of service to you. Before I introduce the mayor, I do want to let you guys know a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know. I grew up in the South Bay and was raised by very hardworking parents. My mom worked for Jack in the Box for 41 years, and my dad was in the logistics industry. So they both instilled a very strong work ethic in me. I graduated from UCSD with a major in poli-sci and focus in international relations. And honestly, I went into the private sector, but it wasn't for me. I had a call to action for public service, and I wanted to work hard to make a positive change for the communities of District 8. In 2017, after 8 years of working in public service for the previous council member, Councilmember David Alvarez, I decided to run for office. Now, during this pandemic, you guys, just to let you guys know, my staff and I have been actively knocking on doors to get the word out about the resources available during these very challenging times. Over the past month, the mayor and the city council have been working hard to come up with the budget for the next fiscal year, beginning July 1st, 2022. In January, I issued my budget priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. And this list included infrastructure upgrades, such as Palm Avenue revitalization plan, rehabilitation of the old Logan Heights Library, installation of sidewalks on pedestrian heavy streets, and green space expansion, including the Choyas Creek Trail and Hidden Trails Park in Otay Mesa. In February, my Climate Equity Fund proposal was unanimously approved by the City Council, which will help fund several priority projects in District 8. I'm very happy to report that thanks to Mayor Gloria, the current draft of the budget does include a $5 million allocation to the Climate Equity Fund. And these resources will help start construction on new projects, such as the much anticipated Southwest Park and Cypress Drive Cultural Corridor. The city's currently upgrading 4 mini parks in District 8. The location of those mini parks is Clay Avenue, Island Avenue, Gamma Street, and J Street mini Park, which will all be completed this year. COVID-19 pandemic has led to unprecedented hardships for our families throughout San Diego. And to assist impacted families, the City Council has approved over $9 million in rental and utilities assistance for low-income households. These programs can help cover up to 80% of bills owed from March 2020 through April 2021. But people, we need to apply. It might not be you, it might be your tia or your grandma. And the application can be found at covidassistance.sdhc.org. There are some of the community relations organizations that we've partnered with to assist individuals if they can't get through the website application. I know the digital divide is absolutely alive, so we want to make sure that we connect people. My staff is going to add the information to the chat. And lastly, I want to highlight my office's community cleanup program. Every month, my office holds multiple dumpster drop-offs and cleanup events where my staff and I go pick up trash, trim overgrown vegetation throughout District 8. Last year, we organized 30 of these events, and our next cleanup is actually going to be held next Thursday in San Isidro. My staff will add that information to the chat. So now I have the honor to introduce our mayor, Mayor Todd Gloria. And I have to let you guys know that since he was elected in November, Mayor Gloria has been a breath of fresh air in city leadership. He has taken the time to listen to the community and has been a very strong vocal advocate for additional resources to our community, District 8. It has been an absolute pleasure to have him on our side. And I'm so giddy and happy about the future and just continued collaboration. So without further ado, Mayor Gloria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Council Member. It is really a pleasure to join you tonight and to be with your constituents, with our constituents, to talk about what's going on at City Hall. I know you take as seriously as I do our responsibilities to educate our constituents, to let folks know what's going on, and certainly to be available to answer questions, which I'd like to be brief in my comments so that we can have plenty of time for questions. Before I go any further, I see a couple of comments about translation into Spanish. We do have a translator this evening. Please click on the globe button at the bottom of your screen and get translation. I think we're trying to work on the closed captioning as well. My staff has put a couple things in the chat there. We want to be as accessible as possible, and I recognize in much of our city, particularly in District 8, that means language translation, and we're happy to provide that this evening. Shout out to Stephanie Estrada from my team. Many of you see her here on the Zoom. She is my representative to Council District 8. For those of you that participate in community town councils, planning groups, and groups of that nature, she is often there on my behalf. And so if you have individual concerns or maybe think of something after we part ways this evening, please get Stephanie's contact information. We're absolutely delighted to be in touch with you and work with the Council District 8 office together to solve problems. And that's actually precisely why we want to be here tonight. I've had the opportunity of serving different parts of San Diego for many years, and I will tell you that commonly these kinds of town halls are held separately. But as Vivian was mentioning a moment ago, I really see our jobs as a partnership. We are partners in governing the city and partners in delivering for the people of District 8. And so I'm really grateful for the partnership tonight, not to have a town hall where you ask me a question, I say, go see your council member, or where Vivian would do one and she'd say, go talk to the mayor, but to be here together in partnership, because when we work together, we can get more done for communities like those in District 8. And Vivian has an inspiring personal story. I share a lot of the same attributes, native San Diegan, pleased to be from a working class family that told me that if you work hard, you can be whatever you want to be. I recognize that's difficult to accomplish, but Vivian and I are living proof of what the city can do. And we, I think, both share a commitment to making sure the doors of opportunity are held open for as many people as we possibly can. And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about this evening before going to questions. As Vivian mentioned, during the time of COVID, there's nothing that I've spent more time on since becoming your mayor than our response to the pandemic. Our city has been proud to partner with the County of San Diego to provide more vaccines. In fact, our firefighters, paramedics, and lifeguards have been authorized to give vaccines. And to date, we've provided tens of thousands of them to San Diegans all across the city, but with a particular focus in communities where we know infection rates have been higher. And sadly, of course, we know that's true in District 8, which is why working with Councilmember Moreno a number of weeks ago, we were able to bring a pop-up vaccination clinic to Montgomery High School and to provide hundreds of vaccines there. Again, this is in partnership with the county, but this strategy is working. As you've seen, our infection rates have fallen. We have multiple days now where we have no deaths in our county, which is fantastic. And what that has meant is that we've been able to slowly reopen our economy. And so things like schools are reopening and more of our children are able to go back into the classroom to learn. More sectors of our economy are reopening, and we're slated for a full reopening of our economy on June the 15th. That's really exciting. And that's directly because all of your hard work and sacrifices. Those of you that have worn masks, maintained social distance, followed the public health guidance, and most importantly, have gotten vaccinated, you have helped us to suppress the spread of the virus, limit the hospitalizations, which has allowed our economy to reopen. I thank you for those sacrifices. I recognize that they are not without tremendous cost, but hopefully you're starting to see that it is working. And when we reopen our economy fully on the 15th, I think that will be proof. It'll be a great day. It'll be a great day. I know Councilmember and I both got vaccinated by our city firefighters at the municipal gym in Balboa Park. We do daily vaccines there. And so for those of you that are still needing to get vaccinated, please check out the city's vaccination efforts. We would love to provide you with a vaccine. help us kick COVID's butt and move on into the important business that there is. And that's the second thing, is how we invest in a just and equitable recovery. I recognize that this pandemic has impacted neighborhoods in our city differently than others. And I think that's particularly true in Council District 8, where we know many hospitality workers live, where a number of working class folks who have not had the luxury of staying home during the pandemic. And as a consequence, we are working on a city budget that would try and address that. We call it my Back to Work SD budget proposal. And there are many things in that particular budget that I think are particularly important to bring out. Councilmember mentioned about steering resources to District 8. We are trying to do this recovery with through the lens of equity, going back to that recognition that there is disproportionate impacts in districts like District 8. And so whether that is focusing our infrastructure spending in neighborhoods in Council Districts 4, 8, and 9, I like to call it my Sexy Streets initiative. It's a notion of it's responding to the notion that sometimes people say infrastructure isn't sexy, but I think all of us who've ever hit a pothole knows that infrastructure is very important. And when we say it isn't sexy, what we're really saying, it's not a priority. And I know for Councilmember Moreno and I, we both think it's a significant priority. The state of our roads, of our sidewalks, of our public facilities is important. And so in my budget, where we've set aside $40 million of additional infrastructure and road repair for these 3 council districts, is really a recognition that in road repair in District 8, sometimes what we're talking about is paving a road for the very first time in the city's history. There is a disproportionate number of unpaved roads in District 8. That is wrong. We have to fix it. We didn't get into this problem overnight, and we're not going to solve it overnight. But with the continued commitment of people like Councilmember Moreno and our colleagues in the City Council, I believe that we can make an improvement there. Additionally, we've set aside $10 million in small business loans. We recognize many of the businesses. I'm thinking particularly of a lot of the businesses in San Ysidro who are still suffering because of the closure of our border for non-essential travel. The businesses like those need financial relief. Because of the American Rescue Plan passed by President Biden, we have the resources to invest in these businesses. And so we are committing $10 million. We have a $2 million commitment from the San Diego Foundation, so creating a $12 million loan fund that, if the council approves the budget as proposed, would provide relief. And we are dedicating a lot of those funds to communities of concern, which most of District 8 would qualify as well as our Black, Indigenous, and people of color businesses, recognizing again the disproportionate impacts that this has had on those communities. The last part of the budget I want to draw your attention to is that often when we talk about building back better, we're often referring to businesses and to getting workers back into their offices and their workplaces. But I want to call out the fact that we also have to help our children build back better. And in this budget, we have what we call a Summer for All of Us proposal. What we're suggesting is a robust amount of summer programming for our young people at neighborhood rec centers. We realize rec centers have low barriers to participation. Many neighborhoods have rec centers. They don't require a sign up or a camper fee or anything like that. They need to be open. They need to be staffed. They need to have enriching curriculum there so that kids can have maybe make up for some of the learning loss that has happened because our schools have been closed. And so this Summer for All of Us intends to do that. Additionally, within this proposal is a significant amount of money for summer youth employment. This is a combination of paid internships through our Park and Recreation Department, as well as paid positions through the San Diego Workforce Partnership. Historically, the city has funded about $250,000 in summer youth jobs for kids. We're proposing over $1 million this year to try and get more of our children occupied this summer, and again, giving them an opportunity to build back better as we invite people to reopen their businesses and go back to work. I also want to note that we've made a recent modification. Previous proposals to reduce library hours have been eliminated, and our proposal is now to reopen our libraries fully. I want to give a shout out to Councilmember Moreno, who was probably the most outspoken council member in saying she would not support reductions to libraries. Our May revise has restored that funding. Thank you, Councilmember, for your advocacy. Couple quick last things I want to mention, because again, I want to have plenty of time for questions. Council members already preached, and I will just say ditto on the Housing Stability Fund. We know that many San Diegans have not been able to pay the rent or their utilities during the pandemic. We have successfully lobbied in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. to get over $80 million of funds that can help pay back rent and utilities. We believe we'll get even more dollars in the months ahead through additional federal relief. And so it requires folks to apply. And I will be candid in saying that I'm unhappy with the number of applications we've received to date. And so I humbly ask folks, even if you're not personally impacted, please share the link that I see my staff just put in the chat with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family members, just exactly as the council member said. Let's not leave this money on the table. Lord knows I don't want to send it back to Washington, D.C. Let's keep these dollars in San Diego and let's make sure that our people are taken care of. This is certainly one of the ways we can build back better. Two more things that I want to just mention quickly is the operations at the convention center just outside of District 8. Many of you know that at the beginning of the pandemic, because we can't host any conventions, repurposed the convention center into a temporary homeless shelter. Those operations ceased back in March. We relocated the homeless that were living there to other shelters across the city. Around the same time, the federal government called and asked if we'd be willing to host unaccompanied minors showing up at our southern border at the convention center. In partnership with the County of San Diego, we said yes. We were one of the first cities to say yes to helping to house these children who are coming from the Northern Triangle countries of Central America, as well as parts of Mexico. So today we currently have over 1,200 young people who are staying at the convention center. They are mostly teenage girls, although we do have some children as young as 5 at that facility. They have been there since March 27th. I'm happy to tell you that just last week we reunited our 1,000th child with their family here in the United States. And this has been an unqualified success to date. I'm extremely proud of the fact that our city has been able to play a role in making sure that we are not a country that leaves kids in cages, but instead that we can house them at our convention center where they're given healthy meals, where they're actually learning, thanks to volunteer teachers who are volunteering their time to teach these young people while they're in this location. I visit the shelter regularly, and I'm very impressed with what's going on there. I think every San Diegan, if had the opportunity to go there, would be proud of what you see. And I would just say as mayor, I'm extremely proud that we consider ourselves a welcoming city, but because of this effort, we are living out our values, and the beneficiaries are children who, through no fault of their own, are in a very bad place, but they're in a better place because San Diegans have opened the door and have been so hospitable. To all of you who've donated gifts, toys, funding to help these children, when we reunite these children with their families, we often are able to send them with a backpack full of gifts and even prepaid gift cards to make sure they can make their way to their families safely. That's because of the hospitality of San Diegans. I really couldn't be prouder, and I thank you all for supporting that effort. The very, very last thing I want to mention is Councilmember Moreno was modest in her comments about her climate equity fund. She doggedly pursued that creation of that fund, which recognizes that climate change will hit first and worst in many of the communities in District 8. And because of that, her fierce advocacy for the creation of this fund is really important. My budget proposal includes millions of dollars for that particular fund. And I believe that we will be able to appropriate those dollars. And as she mentions, those dollars will then flow to projects in Council District 8 and other communities of concern to help address the impacts of climate change. We are currently working on an agreement with our utility, SDG&E, to extend their franchise agreement. The tentative agreement right now proposes an additional $20 million that could go into that climate equity fund. My hope is that while this particular fund, I guarantee you, will be performing and working hard while Councilmember Moreno and I are in office, we want to make sure that this fund exists long after we've left office, because we recognize that we cannot solve climate change overnight. We are going to continue to work to make sure that we have funding going into that particular account, recognizing that it will benefit the people of District 8. So there's a lot going on. COVID, economic recovery, shelter operations, climate change. I haven't even touched homelessness, which I will tell you is interesting to me, continues to be the thing I'm asked about the most by San Diegans, which I think is really interesting when you consider that people are dealing with a pandemic and a recession, and yet this is what they talk about the most. I will tell you our budget proposes an additional $10 million in homeless services that would hopefully help get more people off the streets. But suffice to say, these are some very long days. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve as your mayor. I'm grateful to be able to work with Councilmember Moreno, and I'm delighted to take your questions this evening. Councilmember Moreno and I will be here to answer the questions. Can I toss it back to you, Stephanie, to help us facilitate?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. We will be moving on to part one of our Q&A. These are some for our panelists, wonderful panelists here today. One of our panelists, which is our first one, is Rudy Lopez. He is the San Isidro School Board Vice President. He was unable to make it, but I'm happy to relay the question today for you all today. I ask that you respond slowly for our translators so that we can have our Spanish speakers be able to hear in a good rate. So let's get started. The question from Rudy Lopez is, San Isidro had a great plan with prioritized projects when redevelopment went away. And it seems like those projects have kind of been forgotten. Given your Sexy Streets budget proposal, how will you ensure that projects are equitably distributed across the city, but especially for communities like San Isidro?
I appreciate Rudy asking that question. I know as an elected school board member, he's got a full plate. And so I appreciate the question. I may ask the council member to help, but to that question about ensuring San Isidro's participation, I'll tell you the program design, as I mentioned before, is for our communities of concern. And so that necessarily would include San Isidro. Right now, we have to get it approved by the city council. I'm hopeful that that will be done. And then we will be working with the council offices to identify from community members which streets we want to improve first. I guess the general notion, if I can just expand briefly on what this means, is I'm concerned that the previous administration was extremely focused on paving as many miles of roads as possible, which sounds good, except for it's more about quantity and not quality. And so our intention is to make sure these are quality road repairs. And by quality, I mean, it's not just paving the streets, but it's also installing the bike lanes, improving the sidewalks, installing streetlights where possible. It's making sure that we do a better job than what we've been doing, recognizing, particularly in District 8, you still have streets that have not ever been paved or alleyways that have not been paved. And so that's what we mean by sexy streets or complete streets. Again, we'll be working closely with council offices to identify which streets to prioritize. I wish we had unlimited funds, but the tens of millions that we're committing to this will certainly take a huge bite out of that apple. And forgive me, I'm sure I spoke way too fast. It is a problem that we have, right, Vivian? We talk fast, but others just need to listen quicker too, right? Did you have anything to add to that, council member?
Well, I'll be very brief in my response, but one of the things that the community of San Isidro and all the communities in District 8 can be sure of is that me and my staff are absolutely watching our capital improvement projects from District 8 like hawks. One of the issues that we have in San Isidro is that we have been so successful in getting our CIP projects across the finish line that we're actually running out of CIP projects. So thank God we have organizations like Casa Familiar to help us out with the Cypress Avenue corridor, which was extrapolated from the community plan update that was just passed. Another project in Otay Mesa that was not a CIP project that was extrapolated from the Otay Mesa Nestor community plan update was Southwest Park. And up in the north, it's Boston Avenue, right? We still don't have a CIP on that one, but we're working hard. And so we're going to be making sure that all of our projects in District 8 cross that finish line, and we're always pushing and asking the right questions. And I would actually welcome the community to get very involved in the CIPs within your community, and also advocate to us and push us to create more capital improvement projects within your community. I've always said this: if you ain't a CIP, you ain't nothing in the city of San Diego. So you need to make sure that you are pushing us in that direction. So, but I'm going to be watching. Me and my staff are going to be watching, and we're going to be updating every single neighborhood. So thank you for that question.
Thank you so much, Council Member. This second question will be asked for you. This question is from our panelist, Daniela Kelly, who is the Executive Director for Sherman Heights Community Center.
Good evening, Mayor Todd, Gloria, Councilmember Vivian Moreno, fellow panelists, and community members. My name is Daniela Kelly, and I am the Executive Director of the Sherman Heights Community Center. We are a small community-based organization in the heart of the Sherman Heights neighborhood. My question is for Councilmember Vivian Moreno. This is the question as follows. As Executive Director of the Sherman Heights Community Center, I hear and see the emotional distress and lack of motivation many families are experiencing due to the pandemic isolation. What type of support services are available for families who need some assistance in returning to the normal or who may feel left behind?
Well, thank you, Daniel, for that very important question, and thank you for being here tonight. This is a very important topic. Many families are struggling, both physically and mentally due to this pandemic. But one of the things that I'm here to tell you guys is that there is help, right? But the number one thing right now is that we have to be comfortable asking for the help. I will share, I won't get too personal, but I will share with my experience with my family, and the isolation for the teenagers has just been gut-wrenching, devastating, and we don't know exactly what they're going through. But I just met with the principal of Los Altos Elementary and the high school, San Isidro, the principal of the high school in San Isidro High School, and there is help available, right? So when the principal comes knocking at your door, you're not in trouble, right? And that's the switch that we need to make as a community. Because if my principal called my house, my mom was like, "What did you do?" Right, in Spanish. And so we need to shift that. And there absolutely is help, not only through the school, but also through the county. And that's what we're here for, right? To provide you the help. We already spoke about the rental relief, so nobody should be hurting in that regard. And it's not only your rent, but it's also your public utilities. If you need food, food is available to you. We will bring food to your door if that is what you need. And in general, help is here. That's one of the things I do want to mention. I also want to reiterate the Summer for All of Us program that was proposed by Mayor Gloria. The city is going to be offering group recreational opportunities and workshops for youth and for their parents as well. So one, ask for help, and two, it might be embarrassing, but come out to our park and rec and let's do a class, and let's go walk, and come out to one of our cleanups. I have to tell you that after a cleanup, I definitely feel a lot, the endorphins start kicking in, givers gain, but we're here to help. Always feel free to contact my office for any matter whatsoever. We are here to help. That is my job.
Thank you.
Alrighty, and so we're going to move forward into our third panelist, which is Josephine Talamantes from the Chicano Park and Cultural Museum Board. And this question will be for Mayor.
Well, first, thank you, Councilwoman Moreno, for your support of the Chicano Park Museum and Cultural Center. You're deeply appreciated. And thank you, Mayor Gloria, for the breath of fresh air in this city. We're so excited to have you here. My question, the Chicano Park Museum and Cultural Center is working to preserve the culture, art, and history of the community that speaks to the residents and structures of this historic neighborhood. How will you support Barrio Logan Community Plan coming forward and the preservation of our historic Logan Heights Library located at 28th Street here in Logan Heights? That represents a landmark for so many of us from Logan Heights. The building is there and it's just kind of, anyway, how will you help preserve it?
Josephine, thank you for the question, and thank you for all that you and your organization do for Barrio Logan, for District 8, for the city. I appreciate it. As the mayor, the city works because people like you care deeply about your corner of our city, and appreciate your advocacy. To your question, let me start with the Barrio Logan Community Plan. I would just point out that I've long been a supporter of the Barrio Logan Community Plan. I supported it, the previous version, fought against the referendum, and continue to be extremely upset about the outcome of that referendum. I point out my predecessor committed to bringing forward an updated Barrio Logan Community Plan during his 7 years in office, and he didn't do it. It's my intention to bring one forward this year. We have to right that wrong. It is a stain on our city that Barrio Logan was treated that way, and I'm anxious to fix it, and I believe we can. Planning staff is working on that and working with council member. Again, it is our hope to bring that before the city council later this year. And again, appreciation to all the community members who stayed at the table and have worked to try and find a path forward. I believe we're very close. It's a matter of time. On Logan Heights, on the library, I know it's a community treasure, but it doesn't look like one currently. We have not maintained it the way that we should, and it doesn't reflect its importance to the community. You have been active on that. I can tell you Councilmember Moreno has been very active on this issue. And I will tell you that right now it is our, what we're doing is working with State Senator Benjueso to ask for state support. We believe because it's historic and because it's a significant cultural contribution to the community that it's worthy of state investment. The senator believes the same. And so the council member and I have sent him a request on behalf of the city to help fund the repairs that are there. Once we have those dollars, I believe we can work with our city's real estate assets department to find a new life, a way to activate that building in a way to make the community happy. And so first things first, let's get those state dollars. For those of you that know Senator Hueso, send them a line, let him know that it's important to you. He believes this passionately, but it's always helpful to hear from your constituents. And my hope is through the state budget process, which we'll know a lot more about in the next few weeks, that hopefully we'll have some good news for you. But between the senator, the council member, and myself, and the fact that the state has a pretty good budget this year, I'm hopeful we can get some money for Logan Heights and restore that important building. Just, I'm sorry, I think you're on mute.
I said I would like to be on the committee that will be advising you. I have a lot of ideas for that building.
Good stuff. Let's do that. And Stephanie, let's make sure we follow up.
Yep, will do. Thank you, sir. So now we're going into our fourth panelist question. This question will be asked by Alberto Velasquez. He is the chair of the Otay Nestor Community Planning Group, and this question will be addressed to Councilmember Moreno.
Yes, hi, good evening to both of you, Mayor Gloria and Councilwoman Moreno. My question is actually in regards to the Tijuana River Valley and its issue. Can you give us an update on the regional efforts to help combat the sewage and contamination issues on the Tijuana River?
Wonderful. Thank you for that question, Mr. Velasquez. As you may know, I live right off of Dairy Mart Road and San Isidro Boulevard, so I have the distinct honor of smelling the sewage. And since assuming office, one of my highest priorities has been to hold the federal government accountable to the Clean Water Act of 1972. And they have historically failed to fulfill their legal and moral mandate on this environmental disaster. You know, after I successfully pushed the city to sue the federal government over this mismanagement, we really began to see action immediately. The USMCA, formerly known as NAFTA, allocated $300 million for border infrastructure. And the EPA is currently reviewing 10 projects that are gonna help mitigate some of that pollution. My staff, I believe, is gonna add some, a little note there in the comment section if you guys want to see the 10 projects and if you guys want to comment on them. But a major issue in the past has been the lack of leadership in handling this disaster. There isn't a federal agency that has taken responsibility, right? And so we hope that that's going to change. A recent bill from Senator Feinstein is going to designate the EPA as the lead agency and make them responsible for the operations and maintenance of the new infrastructure that's needed. Lastly, if you guys know the Tijuana River Valley, this is a binational issue, which absolutely requires a binational solution. So we continue to work with our Mexican counterparts on a source of control in Tijuana, but you have my commitment that I'm gonna be working with everybody to share the vision of a healthy and clean Tijuana River Valley. This is one of the most important riparian habitat in the nation, the Tijuana River Valley. If you haven't gone hiking, I highly recommend it. And so we need to continue to apply pressure on this matter. And I'm the lady. I'm the one that's definitely applying pressure. So, and I'm going to continue. And we need more people to join though in that voice. We need a louder voice for the Tijuana River Valley. So thank you for that question, though.
Thank you both for coming out today.
Thanks, Albert.
Thank you so much, Alberto and Councilmember Moreno. So we will be moving into our part 2 of our Q&A. These are we had an RSVP list brought out and we had some pre-submitted questions. So this first question will be for you, Councilmember Moreno. How does racial and equity policies play out for Barrio Logan that continues to plague by air, noise, light, and traffic pollution? And how do we enforce any of these policies?
So I think, for one, pollution from, let's start with pollution from commercial semi-trucks was a major environmental issue when I entered office. It definitely is not the only one, but it was one that was at the forefront in 2018. And one of the first items that I voted on was the approval of a new truck route through Barrio Logan, which circumvented the residential areas. In the first couple of months, I would say residents saw very little change. After we enacted these laws, they weren't being enforced. So, we urged SDPD to draft a specific plan to address the truck traffic. And there has been a significant reduction in traffic in the community. And I continue to advocate for green space in Barrio Logan, such as the Boston Avenue Linear Park, which is going to include open space, tree shades, bike lanes, park amenities, all that good stuff. And, as was mentioned, the city's currently going through the process of updating the Barrio Logan's very outdated community plan. And this is going to change land use to finally create a buffer zone between residential areas and other industrial areas where, pollution is more prevalent. And last, looking forward, we're looking for advocates for Harbor Drive 2.0 for that project. And basically, Harbor Drive 2.0 is going to create a designated path for trucks, separating dangerous traffic from pedestrians and passengers, and not to mention bike lanes and pedestrian-friendly crossings and all that good stuff. So I would urge residents of Barrio Logan to really get behind that Harbor Drive 2.0 project, and also and advocate. Right now it's in the port, and so we're trying to get the EIR, the environmental documents out to have it come to fruition. But really, it's to answer really a short way, Barrio Logan was just completely left behind. Nobody cared, right? Nobody cared, and I think that right now we have a lot of people who care. Right? We have not only your council member that cares deeply, not only the mayor that cares deeply, but you have residents, right? You have the Josie Talamantes of this world that are saying, not anymore. You guys are gonna have to go through me to do anything, right? And Josie has been advocating for decades for Barrio Logan, and we wouldn't have Chicano Park without Ms. Talamantes and her whole family's advocacy. But it really is up to us as the community to stand up and say, we want this, we don't want that, and to be vocal and to push us as elected officials. So I welcome everybody to start calling me, emailing me, and getting coming along on this advocacy for Barrio Logan.
Thank you so much, Council Member, for that. So we will be going into our second pre-submitted question. This question was asked by Clara Padilla, and this one is for Mayor Gloria. It says, Mayor Gloria, I am thankful for many things you are doing in every district. I also have huge respect for law enforcement, but I would like to know why are quality of life issues and complaints handled differently in every district? Why is it that some neighborhoods receive a better response when it comes to SDPD non-emergency calls?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's tough in that, there's certainly different experiences. It's probably tough that I'm still very much learning the operations of the city from a mayor's perspective. I know it from a council member's perspective, but from the mayor, it's a bit different. I think that the short answer to that question is the amount of staffing versus the number of calls in certain communities. I've been visiting each of our police precincts to meet the captains, to talk to the officers. And there are certain precincts that are well staffed and have many officers. There are others that have fewer. I think a part of what you may be experiencing currently is that because of the pandemic, there are many low-level offenses that are not being, you're not able to ticket or to incarcerate for currently. And so it leaves the city in a position of not being able to respond in the way that we'd like, or to not get the reactions that you'd expect. We anticipate that changing as the restrictions around COVID are lifted, and our ability to actually enforce on many of these quality of life crimes, as you mentioned, will increase because we'll have more tools at our disposal, whether it be citation or arrest. But it also speaks to that staffing question. And we are continuing to try and invest in our city personnel, providing raises to city workers. And that is helping to stem the loss of workers in all of our professions, but including law enforcement. And we have to continue to do that. We've been able to raise law enforcement salaries to basically be the median of other jurisdictions here locally. But the only way we continue to do that is to be able to provide regular cost of living adjustments, which we have proposed. Will remains to be seen if those will be accepted through the labor process. But we still have a lot of work to do there. And I recognize that for a lot of our policing, what we enforce upon in one neighborhood isn't even to the other. And we have to change that. I have recommended a series of police reforms, 11 of them, that I hope to implement ideally this year. Some may take a little bit longer, but we're going to work hard to try and make sure that the way we police Logan Heights is the same that we do it in La Jolla. Right now, we recognize that isn't always the case, and we can do better, and we have to.
Thank you so much for that, Mayor. We'll be moving on to our part 3 of our Q&A. This would be some questions that we have in the chat. So for the first question, we have, what is the mayor's plan to address homelessness? And then Councilmember Moreno, you are welcome to also add on.
Gosh, I could keep you here all night, but I know we have a lot of questions in the chat. So let me try and be brief. I think if I had to describe a difference between the previous administration's approach and mine, is that we're not going to do any shiny objects. We're just going to do the hard work to actually get people off the streets. And what do I mean by that? Well, you might remember the story of the indoor skydiving facility down on Imperial Avenue that was purchased for homelessness, but it actually has no shelter beds in it. That was $7 million that was spent. I think that was a desire to have a ribbon cutting or something, but ultimately that doesn't house anybody. We got to quit doing that. And we got to focus on national best practices that are proven to get people off the streets. My first month in office was able to hire former President Obama's homelessness czar to help evaluate what the city is doing and make recommendations on how to improve our approach. And ultimately, the short answer is the quickest way to solve homelessness is to provide more housing. And that can often be difficult because sometimes that can be scary. But I will tell you, when I was on the city council, I cited a homeless shelter just a few blocks from the home that I'm calling you from right now. And I'm here to tell you all these years later, it's fine. You drive by it, you have any idea that that's what's going on there. What I know is there's about 48 fewer people in our neighborhood sleeping on the sidewalks because that facility has been opened. And so my humble request as your mayor is that every neighborhood participate in solutions for this problem, recognizing that communities like downtown and others near around it have long participated in those solutions. Really, every community has to, and we have to provide housing, but we also have to provide the services that keep people housed long-term. And that means, again, not buying shiny objects for ribbon cuttings. It's doing the hard work of actually following the programs that get people off the streets. This is going to take a while to solve. I will tell you, thank you for those of you who are following the pandemic rules. The sooner we can lift social distancing prohibitions, we can actually increase our shelter supply because we are enforcing social distancing in our shelters. That's hundreds of beds that we can gain immediately. So again, continue to follow the rules, get vaccinated if you can. It doesn't just protect your health, but it'll help us do things like reopen our shelters fully and get more people off the streets. Stephanie, throw it back to you if the council member does anything.
Thank you. We've had a lot of get it done questions in the chat, but just one that we do have, and this will be addressed to both of you. Francisco asks, on average, it takes 6 months to replace a broken light bulb on a street light using GID. How can that be improved?
Speed it up. I want, Vivian's been back at the city longer than I have. Councilmember, you maybe want to share some historic knowledge on this?
Yeah, so Get It Done has been very instrumental in getting work done, right? But there are certain glitches to it. And we've experienced it ourselves, right? Because my staff, they do drive-alongs and they report issues in our community. And that's a glitch that we keep on asking the folks over in Panda to address. And so we're definitely, we were having this discussion during the budget, and that's definitely something that we continue to work. As they say, what is it? It's not electronics, but the internet and electronic stuff is really cool because you get stuff done really quick, but there are glitches, and unfortunately that is one of the glitches, and we're working on it, is the best answer that I could give you. But continue, if something like that continues to persist, please contact our office because we elevate it to the directors. And that's the way that we have been conducting our business, if you will, in the city of San Diego. That's how we've been reporting potholes and streetlights and other matters. And the Get It Done app is actually, it has become very successful. There are other cities in the nation that basically we're going to be selling Getting It Done, right? The software to other cities because it's been very successful. But there are glitches. Please let us know. Please contact us.
And if I can just follow up quickly, because I agree with what the council member said, I would just add that, we have not had the staffing that we need to do these jobs. We can accept the complaint through the app. We don't always have the people to actually go out and replace the light. And that has to change. By the salary increases I mentioned before will make us a more attractive employer, allow us to keep employees long-term, not just come work for us for a little bit and then go move somewhere else to go work for another city. We have lifted a hiring freeze that was necessary during the pandemic to help balance the city's budget. So we'll be hiring more folks, paying them a little bit better, keep them around for a while. But we also have to make sure that we're having the pipeline for workers to come work at the city. And back to the prior question about homelessness, one of the challenges we have is that we don't have the full staffing we need for all of our homeless sites. And so one of the proposals in our budget is to include funding to actually create a work certificate program through our community colleges to actually get people who can help us work at some of our shelters. It's all about developing the workforce, and that's inclusive of the workers who help us fill potholes, switch out streetlights, repair signs, all that kind of stuff.
Thank you so much for that. So we have another question in the chat, and this one will be for you, Mayor. Jason asked, the pandemic has shown that border communities have virtually no federal representation. Mayors together have an extremely strong voice. Mayor, please describe your plans as chair of Border Mayors Conference.
Vice chair. The mayor of Chicago would not like to hear that. She's a great partner in this. Thank you for the question, Jason. Yeah, I see my job as your mayor and as the mayor of the largest border city in the United States is being a fierce advocate for our border communities. You may have heard me mention before about our concerns about the small businesses in the San Ysidro area who are suffering, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the closure of the border for non-essential travel. I had a meeting just yesterday with Speaker Nancy Pelosi asking for her help in advocating to the Biden administration to lift those restrictions. We recognize that this isn't so much about health because people can cross for essential travel without testing or proof of vaccination. This needs to change, and it's going to continue to hurt our city until we do that. How do we do that? Well, the good news is this job gives me the opportunity to get meetings with the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I've also had meetings with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security with Secretary Mayorkas. I've sent a letter to our Vice President asking her to come to San Diego to tour the border and the Tijuana River Valley. I will continue to use this bully pulpit to push this issue, recognizing that as the biggest border city, if we don't do it, no one else will. And so my vision is to make sure that we see and national decision makers see the border as I see it, which is an asset not as a liability as has been characterized the last couple of years. I think we generally have agreement on that fact. We just need to start, like the council member says, making that real, right? It's fine to say it in an aspirational term. You got to have the CIP, right? You got to have the climate equity fund to invest in. So I'm appreciative for the different attitude in the approach, but now we need to start seeing the actual work, and that starts with reopening our border for non-essential travel.
Thank you so much. This question is from the chat as well, and this one will be for you, Councilmember Moreno. Sandy, we have, oh, sorry. When will we see and hear what a San Ysidro intermodal will look like? Timing of this investment, and can you support real alignment with MTS, Sandag, and the city of SD on this, along with equitable bathrooms managed by MTS with as much urgency?
Thank you for that question. And I think this is where Mayor Gloria has been, once again, a breath of fresh air. I sit on the board of MTS, and also I'm his alternate in Sandag. And one of the things that I've been very clear at MTS and at Sandag is that there needs to be more attention paid, not only to the Blue Line, but also to San Ysidro. The San Ysidro trolley station, in one day, we will get the same amount of people that Comic-Con gets in 4 days. And you guys have seen the amount of attention that Comic-Con gets from MTS. So it's high time that MTS starts paying attention to our community, right? So I went in there, you know, guns blazing, and I said, we need to get this San Ysidro Intermodal Transit Center finished, right? And so one of the things is we need money. And just to give you guys, just to back up a little bit, Sandag does the planning for the region, right, for transportation, and MTS obviously does all the operations for the bus and the trolley. And so MTS just allocated, I want to say, over $1 million to, well, we have to approve it at Sandag. So they've allocated about $1 million for the San Ysidro Intermodal Transit Center so that we could get it studied, so we could see what is feasible. You know, it's a very small space for those of you who cross northbound or who go southbound. So we have to get very creative with the San Ysidro Intermodal Transit Center. But when we're crossing into the United States, I absolutely want to feel pride. I want people to know you are in America's finest city, the city of San Diego. We welcome you and we want you with open arms, right? So really what is happening right now, to give you the information, is we're allocating funding for this plan. I know that, and the other thing with the Sandag is that they have the regional plan of, you know, that we are voting on very soon. And that's one of the things that I told our director, Hassan. I said, I can't support any plan unless the South Bay, unless San Ysidro is at the forefront. I've asked for a whole lot more stuff, just so you guys know, especially the Blue Line is the backbone of the whole system. So we're asking for grade separation, right? So that there won't be any interference with people walking. I was just, right before this, I was walking on my 5K walk, and you know, it's dangerous. It's scary to see the trolley just swoosh past you. Obviously, we keep our distance, but we want that grade separation. So there's a lot of focus in MTS. There's a lot of focus in Sandag. You guys have a very strong representative in both of those agencies. And another, just to kind of you know, hit on this topic, another discussion that we're having in MTS is youth opportunity passes. How are we going to keep riders in San Diego active, right? And I think one of the ways to do this, not the only way, but one of the ways to do this is invest in our future, invest in the future riders. So getting kids familiar with riding. And so but I'm happy to chat with anybody. And once again, we need advocates to show up to these meetings, to advocate for these projects. The San Ysidro Intermodal Transit Center is going to be a mammoth of a project, but we can get it done. With your guys' help, we can get it done.
Thank you so much, Council Member, for that. And on that note, I will move us into closing remarks. If you all have a few words for closing remarks, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Moreno.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. There's many other places you could have been, but we appreciate your advocacy for our community. I want to say that we are very lucky to have Mayor Gloria. I can't wait for COVID to be over so we could send Mayor Gloria advocating and getting our money in Sacramento and getting our money in DC. But we truly have a gem in Mayor Gloria and also in Stephanie. She has been a breath of fresh air. And I thank everybody for being here. And I thank Mayor Gloria for everything that you are doing for District 8. These are my bosses, Mayor Gloria, District 8, right? So meet my bosses, but thank you.
I love it. Thank you, Councilmember, for those kind words. And they're my bosses too, right? We got to answer to all these folks, and I appreciate folks taking the time. As is mentioned in the chat, if we didn't get to your question, the D8 staff or my staff will follow up with you. I see a number of questions about a particular address in, I think it's Logan Heights area. We can certainly follow up on that. And I would just say in conclusion, this won't be the last time you see us. I don't know how to do this work without checking in regularly with the community. As I mentioned at the top, please, this is not the last, you can reach out to Stephanie from my team and follow up if things, we have other questions. But just know that I appreciate having this opportunity to lead my hometown. I love being your mayor, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful for the chance to work with Councilmember Moreno. You all have a fierce advocate in her. There are 9 council districts. You got to have a very active council member, and that one you surely have to make sure your voices are heard. Let's keep working together. I know there are tremendous issues, and we find ourselves in a really difficult time, like in historic context, a pandemic, a recession, a racial reconciliation, climate change, gun violence. There are so many challenges facing us, but I can tell you that I am more than optimistic about our city. We are a beautiful community. We have amazing people, and we have tons of resources and opportunities. I have the chance to talk with mayors all across the nation every single day. Most of them wish that they were us. We have a lot of things going for us. My commitment to you is to do everything I can to make this city better for really everybody. And I mean, particularly for working and middle-class people. I want to make sure that stories like Vivian and I, who grew up in this community, were able to work hard, were able to go to college. That story has to be true for more San Diegans. I'm worried that on our current trajectory, it is not. But you see, whether it's our investment in trying to get more people off of our streets, our investment in our kids, keep our libraries open, making sure there's more good paying jobs at the city, you see a real commitment to making sure those ladders of opportunity exist for all of us. And that's what we want to do. So look forward to us coming back again. In the meantime, you see that Stephanie's put up this graphic here on the screen. You have all of our email addresses, all of our phone numbers. You know where to find us. We work for you. I appreciate the chance for you to give you some of this information tonight. And I appreciate the chance to answer your very good questions. Thank you all very, very much.